Hello friends and welcome to Pendulum Edu. Today we'll be discussing daily current affairs of 10 July 2020. And guys, quickly join this session and also ask your friends to join this session. Keep following daily current affairs, and those who have not subscribed to our channel Pendulum Edu, please subscribe it and also press the bell icon to receive daily notifications of such videos. Now let's see what are the news of today. The first news is Cabinet approves extension of 24% of contribution to Employees Provident Fund for 3 months. So recently this cabinet has approved the proposal to increase 12% of the employees and 12% of the employer share, which is total 24% contribution to Employees Provident Fund for next 3 months, that is from June to August 2020. So this was announced when the package was announced for Atmanirbhar Bharat, that the EPF assistance for business and workers will be extended for 3 months, that is June, July and August 2020. And now the cabinet has given approval for this. And under EPF we will talk about Employment Provident Fund. So this Employees Provident Fund EPF, it is a scheme, it is a main scheme which is under the Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisionals Act of 1952, and this EPF, it is managed by EPFO. EPFO, what is EPFO? EPFO is Employees Provident Fund Organization. It manages this Employees Provident Fund, and any establishment which has 20 or more than 20 employees, then for them to become member of EPF, it is necessary. And certain organizations which have been classified, so in that if there is less than 20 members also, then employees also, then also they are eligible for EPF. And in this EPF, employer as well as employee, they make equal contribution. Equal contribution is made by employees as well as employer. And if we talk about the general organizations in which 20 or more people are employed, then in that case 12% is contributed by employer and 12% is contributed by employee to the EPF. And this 12% is usually, it is part of percent of basic wages plus dearance allowance plus retaining allowance. And but in most of the private sector, it is 12% of the basic salary. And the employees whose pay is more than 15,000 per month at the time of joining, for them it is not compulsory. They can become member of EPF with the permission of the EPFO as well as the permission of the employer. And in case the employee is getting less than 15,000 per month at the time of joining, then it is mandatory for them that they have to become the member of EPF. And in case of organizations which I told you, like the organizations in which there are certain organizations in which there are less than 20 members, 20 employees, then also they have to be part of Employees Provident Fund. In that case, 10% is contributed of basic salary by the employees and 10% by the employer. So this was all about EPF. And this the scheme which has been extended, that is the contribution which has been provided for 3 months, that is from June to August, it will cost rupees 4,860 crore to the government, and more than 72 lakh employees, they will get benefit from this scheme. And the approval is in addition to the current scheme of wage months of March to May, which was approved on 15 April 2020. Now let's see a question related to the news. Which of the following statements is true? Recently the cabinet has approved 24% extension of contribution of Employees Provident Fund for 3 months from June to August. Second, the government will credit contributions to both employee as well as the employer. So quickly comment the correct answer. 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, and none of the above. So which statement is true? Quickly comment what will be the correct answer for this. The correct answer is option C, that is both 1 and 2, both statements are true. Moving to the next news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he addressed the opening ceremony of India Global Week 2020, which is a virtual conference which is running from 9 July to 11 July 2020. And the theme of this virtual conference is Be the Revival, India and a Better New World. In this, more than 5,000 global participants are there from 30 countries, and 250 speakers. They'll address 75 sessions of this virtual conference. An MOU has been signed between Central Board of Direct Taxes, that is CBDT, and SEBI, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India. They have signed an MOU for data exchange, and this MOU will facilitate data and information sharing between the two bodies on an automated and regular basis. And the day the MOU was signed, it has come into force. Now let's see something about SEBI and CBDT. So SEBI, it is a statutory body which was established under Securities and Exchange Board of India Act, that is SEBI Act of 1992, and it acts as a regulator of the government-owned securities and commodity markets. Its headquarters are located in Mumbai, and the current president, or you can say current chairman of SEBI, is Ajay Tyagi. Talking about Central Board of Direct Taxes, it is a statutory body under the Central Revenue Act of 1963. It deals with the matters relating to levy and collection of direct taxes such as personal income tax, corporate tax, etc. The current president of CBDT is Mr. Pramod Chandra Modi. And CBDT was also in news as there was a fake news regarding the merger of CBDT and CBIC, that is Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. So there was a fake news which government clarified that the government has not given any proposal to merge the two bodies, that is Central Board of Direct Taxes and Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Now let's see a question related to the news. Recently, Central Board of Direct Taxes and which institution has signed an MOU for data exchange? SEBI, SIDBI, IRDAI and CCI. Quickly comment the correct answer. Which institution has signed an MOU with Central Board of Direct Taxes? The correct answer will be option A, that is SEBI. And talking about SIDBI, it is a financial institution which provides a loan for the small business and industries. Small business and this SIDBI, it was formed in 1990. IRDAI, it is IRDAI, it is a regulatory body which regulate and promotes insurance and reinsurance industry, and this was formed in 1999. CCI, Competition Commission of India. So this Competition Commission of India, it was formed in 2003, and its aim is to implement the CCI Act of 2002. So it implements the CCI Act of 2002, and basically it take care of the acquisitions and mergers of the companies in the market and also ensure healthy competition in the market. So this is the mandate of Competition Commission of India. Moving to the next news. Government extended the deadline for taking 3 free gas cylinders under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme, and these beneficiaries, they can avail free cylinder till September 2020. And this facility, it was earlier it was extended up to June 2020, and now seeing the situation due to the ongoing pandemic, people are still facing issues, so and economy is not also in such a good phase. So the government has extended this scheme, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme, under which 3 free gas cylinders can be availed by the beneficiaries till September 2020. And with this decision, about 740 million families, they'll get benefit. This Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme, this is a very important yojana or scheme of the government. This is one of the most successful schemes of the government. It was launched by Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi on 1st May 2016 in Balia, Uttar Pradesh. So many a times questions are asked related to the launch of the particular scheme. So it was launched on 1st May 2016 in Uttar Pradesh, Balia. And the objective of the scheme is to distribute 50 million LPG connections to women beneficiaries from below poverty line families. So basically the connection is, free LPG connection is provided to the women from a BPL family. And under this scheme, it is implemented by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So you people may get confused that Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme, since it aims to empower women, so and it also aims to promote a clean fuel. So this may be implemented by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change or Ministry of Women and Child Development. So you have to understand that this scheme is implemented by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas because LPG connections is provided. Therefore, it is under the implementation by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Now let's see a question related to the news. Which ministry implements the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme? Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Quickly comment the correct answer. Which ministry implements this Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme? The correct answer will be option B, that is Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And along with this, Cabinet has also approved development of affordable rental housing complex. This scheme has been approved as a part of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. And this especially it is a scheme for the urban migrants and poor. And this is affordable rental housing complex which has been approved by development of these complexes by the Cabinet. And also the government has approved this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which aims to provide free rice or wheat, 5 kg of rice and wheat and 1 kilogram of chana to every person of BPL household. So this scheme has also been extended till November 2020. It was announced on 1st July and now the Cabinet has given approval for the extension of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana till November 2020. Now moving to the next news. Cabinet approval for establishment of 1 lakh crore rupees agriculture infrastructure fund. So recently this Cabinet has approved an agriculture infrastructure fund which will be worth rupees 1 lakh crore, and this will be set up as a pan-India central sector scheme. So what is this central sector scheme? So let's compare. There are two types of scheme, which is central sector scheme. One is central sector scheme and another is centrally sponsored scheme. Centrally sponsored schemes. So the difference between the two is that central sector scheme, they are fully funded. Important thing is that these are fully funded by the government, by the central government, and it usually the subject of the such schemes is basically from the union list, and central government is also responsible for the execution of such schemes. So execution of such schemes is also done by the central government, while centrally sponsored schemes, they are partially funded. They are partially funded by central government. That is, it will be partially funded by central government and partially it will be funded by state government. Okay. So the ratio can be 50-50. It can be 75-25. It can be 80-20 or it can be 90-10. Between the center and state, depending on the type of scheme. And these schemes are also core schemes. These are further divided as core schemes or optional schemes. So the schemes which are mandatorily, they have to be implemented, and also these central sponsored schemes, these are implemented by state government. These are implemented by state government. So these core schemes, they have to be the central government, the state government has to be part of these core schemes, but optional schemes, these are optional. State can sponsor these schemes or not. It depends on particular state which want to be part of that scheme or not. And let's see some examples of a central sector scheme. So these are directly funded and entirely funded by center. And the examples you can see over here, Namami Gange project. Namami Gange, it is a central sector scheme. Then Ujjwala Yojana, which we have studied just now, Ujjwala Yojana, and also Mudra Yojana. These schemes, these are a central sector scheme, and for this centrally sponsored schemes, examples are Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana or National Health Mission, or you can say Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. These all are centrally sponsored schemes. That is, these are partially funded by central government, and also state government fund these schemes in a particular ratio. Now coming back to the news, the duration of the scheme, it will be for 10 years, that is from financial year 2020 to 2029. This scheme, it will be implemented for 10 years, and under this the fund will be used to provide loan to primary agriculture credit societies, marketing cooperative societies, farmer producer organizations, self-help groups, farmers, startups, and central and state agencies. So from this fund, the banks or financial institutions, they will be providing loan to the agriculture credit societies, marketing cooperative societies, farmer producer organizations, self-help groups, farmers, startups, and central state agencies. Under this financing facility, all loans will have an interest subvention of 3% per year up to a limit of 2 crore. And this facility, it will be available, that is the interest subvention of 3% per year, it will be available for a maximum period of 7 years. And as I discussed earlier, that interest subvention means that this 3% will be paid by the government. Okay. This is the meaning of interest subvention, that 3% of the interest, that the particular amount of interest, it will be paid by the government. So if any person who is availing this under this financing facility, any person will be availing this loan of a limit up to 2 crores, that he or she will be eligible for the interest subvention of 3% per year, and this will be available for a maximum period of 7 years. Now moving to the question part. Recently, Union Cabinet has approved a new Pan-India Central Sector Scheme, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. What will be the value of this fund? 1 lakh crore rupees, 2 lakh crore rupees, 2.5 lakh crore rupees, and 3 lakh crore rupees. Quickly comment the correct answer. Very easy. Keep commenting the correct answer. Like video. Share it as much as you can. Keep following daily current affairs. The correct answer will be option A, 1 lakh crore rupees. Moving to the next news, inauguration of the administrative and educational block of a newly built Shri Mahadev Matsya Chaturved campus in Mugu, Nepal. So recently this educational block of newly constructed Shri Mahadev Matsya Chaturved campus, it was inaugurated in Mugu, Nepal, and this complex, it has been constructed under Nepal India Maitri Development Corporation program. And the cost of this is 35.11 million. This was established in 2007. The campus is a community-owned education institution which is affiliated to Tribhuvan University, and it is approved by UGC Nepal. And this university, it offers a 4-year full-time undergraduate degree course. Another project, Shri Saptami Gurukul Sanskrit Vidyalaya, which is built under Nepal India Maitri Development Corporation, it was also inaugurated. So basically 2 projects under the Nepal India Maitri Development Corporation program were inaugurated. First, the block administrative and education block of newly constructed Shri Mahadev Matsya Chaturved campus, and another was Shri Saptami Gurukul Sanskrit Vidyalaya. Okay, these both were inaugurated in Nepal. So this is a good step in towards the engagement of people to people contact, we can say people to people ties between Nepal and India. It will further strengthen the relation between the 2 countries. Now let's see a question related to the news. Recently, in which country the administrative and educational block of the newly constructed Shri Mahadev Matsya Chaturved campus has been inaugurated? Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. Quickly comment the correct answer. Try to add more and more people to the session. The correct answer will be option A, that is Nepal. Moving to the next news, Ministry of Home Affairs constituted an interministerial committee to investigate the violation of various rules on the 3 trusts run by Gandhi family. And these 3 trusts which are run by Gandhi family are Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, Rajiv Gandhi Charitable Trust, and Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust. So these 3 trusts, they have been charged for the violation of various rules, and now the investigation will be done for this, and an interministerial committee has been appointed in which Special Director of Enforcement Directorate, he will be the chairman of the committee. Also CBI will be the part of this committee. And this committee, it will investigate the violation of various legal provisions, including the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA, Income Tax Act and Foreign Contribution Regulation Act by these trusts. So basically these three trusts, they are being investigated for the breach of the provisions under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Income Tax Act and Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Now let's see a question related to the news. Ministry of Home Affairs constituted an interministerial committee to investigate the violation of various rules on the three trusts run by the Gandhi family. Which of these trusts is not included in them? Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, Rajiv Gandhi Charitable Trust, Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust and Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Trust. So which of these trusts is not included among the three trusts run by Gandhi family, for which an interministerial committee has been appointed to investigate the violation of various rules? So D, option D is the correct answer for this, Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Trust. Moving to the next news. Unmarried permanently handicapped sons of ECHS beneficiaries, they will also be given the benefit of the scheme. So recently the government has announced that the permanently disabled and financially dependent sons of the ex-servicemen contribution health scheme, they will now be eligible for the benefits under the scheme. And this decision, it was taken by Ministry of Defence, and especially sons who have become disabled after attaining the age of 25 years, they'll be particularly getting the benefit of this ECHS scheme. So what is this ECHS scheme? It is ex-servicemen contributory health scheme, and this is a flagship scheme. Flagship means that it is one of the major scheme or a scheme which is particularly focused by a particular ministry. So this is a flagship scheme of Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare. So this is a department which is under the Ministry of Defence. It takes care of the requirements of ex-servicemen. Basically the grievance handling mechanism is seen through this Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare. It takes care of the issues of the ex-servicemen of defence forces. And this scheme, it was implemented from 1st April 2003, and the objective of this scheme is to provide allopathic and Ayush therapy to ex-servicemen pensioners and their dependents. So this ECHS scheme, it is basically, its aim is to provide the allopathic and Ayush therapy to ex-servicemen pensioners and their dependents. And since we all know that there are some age-related issues with the people, so this scheme, it is particularly for the ex-servicemen of the three forces, that is Army, Air Force and Navy. Moving to the question part. In which year was the ex-servicemen contributory health scheme launched? 2003, 2005, 2007 and 2009. Guys, quickly comment the correct answer. Keep following daily current affairs and try to answer all the questions. Very easy. Option A is the correct answer. Moving to the next news. Eradication of rubella and measles from Maldives and Sri Lanka. So recently it has been announced that Maldives and Sri Lanka have become the first two countries in the Southeast Asia region to achieve the goal of eradication of rubella and measles, which was decided to be eradicated by 2023, but they have achieved this target ahead of the 2023 target. And rubella and measles, what are these? These are the two viral diseases, and these are preventable by the MMR vaccine. So this is a vaccine, measles, mumps and rubella vaccine, which is there. So these two viral diseases, these can be prevented through this MMR vaccine. And MMR vaccine was in news a long time back, because it was in a study, it was published that MMR vaccine can reduce sepsis in COVID-19 patients. So what is this sepsis? Sepsis is basically, it is what happens that in our body there are many chemical secretions take place while the body tries to fight with the diseases, and when this chemical secretion it is not balanced, then the body starts getting inflamed, and when there is inflammation, so it it can cause multiple organ failure system. Therefore, sepsis is a condition which occurs while a person is suffering from any bacterial or viral infection. It is a condition which can also lead to death of the person. So this MMR vaccine, it can reduce sepsis in COVID-19 patients. So that is why MMR vaccine was in use. And last case of measles was reported in Maldives in 2009 and rubella in October 2015. While the last case of measles in Sri Lanka was reported in May 2016 and rubella in March 2017. And now these two countries, they have completely eradicated rubella and measles. And the target was to be removed by 2023, but now they have achieved this target 3 years ahead. Now let's see a question related to the news. Recently, which country has eradicated rubella and measles before the 2023 deadline? Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, both A and B. Quickly comment the correct answer. Which is the country which has eradicated rubella and measles before the deadline of 2023? The correct answer is option D, that is both A and B. Moving to the next news, Himalayan butterfly, which is a golden birdwing, it has been discovered after 88 years as the largest butterfly in India. And this was recorded in 1932 by British Army officer Brigadier Evans. So he recorded the presence of golden birdwing in 1932. The female birdwing has been found from Didihat in Uttarakhand, while male was in Wangkhar Butterfly Museum in Shillong, Meghalaya. In the study of the Lepidoptera family, the wingspan is mainly used, which is known by different names. The female golden birdwing has a wingspan of 194 mm, which is slightly larger than the southern birdwing of 190 mm. So therefore, this has been recognized as the largest butterfly in India, and this discovery was made after 88 years. The youngest is the quaker, whose scientific name is Neopithecops zalmora, with a wingspan of 18 mm and a forward length of 8 mm. This is the youngest butterfly. Now let's see a question related to the news. Golden birdwing has been discovered as India's largest butterfly after 88 years. In which region was it recently found? Himalayan region, Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats and Central Plain. Quickly comment the correct answer where this India's largest butterfly, that is golden birdwing, it was recently found. It was recently found in Himalayan region, that is option A. Moving to the next news. Attempt to get GI tag for Vada kolam rice in Palghar district of Maharashtra. So it is a unique variety, which is Vada kolam rice. It is mainly cultivated in Palghar district of Maharashtra, and in that Vada taluka especially cultivate this rice, and there is an attempt to get GI tag for this because it has a unique aromatic variety and it is very much liked in the market due to its taste. And since the land here is fertile in Vada in Palghar district, so only dung is used as a manure and no other chemicals are used. So this is, you can say, it is more of organic rice, and however the variety has a low yield as only 45 quintal of polished rice is produced out of 100 quintal of paddy, while other variety yield about 55 quintals. So productivity is low as compared to other varieties. Therefore, these farmers are less inclined to plant this variety because productivity is low. So therefore, the output in terms of money will also be less. Also, the Dhanau Gholwad Chiku fruit from Palghar district of Maharashtra, it was given GI tag in January 2017. So this Dhanau Gholwad Chiku fruit, which is from the Palghar district, it has received GI tag in January 2017, and now there is an attempt to get GI tag for Vada kolam rice. So a question can be asked related to this Vada kolam rice. Now let's see the question. An attempt was made to get GI tag for Vada kolam rice in Palghar district of Maharashtra. What is not true about this? Quickly comment the correct answer. First statement is dung is used as manure in its production and no other chemicals are used. Second, the yield of this variety is very high. 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, none of these. So quickly comment which statement is not correct. You have to tell which statement is not correct. So the correct answer will be option B, that is 2 only, because it is not very high, it is low. So friends, here we have discussed daily current affairs and related question. I hope you like this session. Please like it, share it as much as you can. If you have any doubt related to daily current affairs, please mention that in comment box. We'll try to solve your doubt. You can also join our Telegram channel where study material is available for your preparation. Keep preparing well, keep preparing with us, keep following daily current affairs. Thank you so much.